I stood in my son's bedroom, the late afternoon light slanting across the bed where I'd laid out his freshly washed clothes. My fingers moved automatically, folding shirts, rolling socks, tucking them neatly into the open suitcase for his first college trip. I was the devoted wife, the careful mother. Always had been. But when the door creaked open and Mark stepped in, my husband's younger brother, something in the air shifted. "Kip, you might want some help," he said, voice low and easy, like it was the most natural thing. I smiled, the polite sister-in-law smile, but my heart gave a small, traitorous stutter. "Oh, you don't have to. I'm almost done." He moved closer anyway, his broad frame filling the small room until the space between us felt too tight to warm. We reached for the same pair of my son's boxers at the same moment. Our hands brushed. His fingers, they didn't pull away right away. They lingered a second too long on the soft fabric, tracing the edge as if by accident. His eyes flicked up to mine, and there it was. Something darker than familial warmth, a flicker that made my breath catch. The faint scent of his cologne drifted over, mixing with the clean laundry detergent I'd used for years. It wrapped around me like an invisible thread. Pulling, I laughed it off, a soft, nervous sound. Clumsy of me, but inside my mind whispered, this is just family helping family. Why does the air feel thicker now? Mark straightened, offering gently, let me pack the rest. Your back must be aching from all this bending. He didn't wait for an answer. His body was suddenly right there, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from his chest through that thin t-shirt. Every small movement brought us nearer, shoulders almost touching, the heat of him brushing my arm as he folded a pair of jeans. They stepped back a fraction, pretending to adjust the suitcase zipper, but my pulse was already racing. He's my brother-in-law. My husband's blood. And yet, that warmth, it seeped through the space between us, making the room feel smaller, the afternoon light heavier. Later that evening, with my husband still at the office working late again, Mark joined me in the kitchen for leftovers. Just a simple shared meal, nothing more. We sat across the small table, plates between us. The conversation stayed light, my son's excitement about college, the weather, safe things. But then his knee pressed against mine under the table. Not hard, not deliberate, at least I told myself it wasn't. Just there. The contact sent a forbidden spark racing up my thigh, warm and unexpected, lingering like a secret I shouldn't keep. I froze for half a second, for halfway to my mouth. This is nothing, I thought, forcing myself to chew. Just family, close quarters. But my own husband's touch hadn't felt like this in months. That electric little jolt, that quiet awareness of skin through denim. Why did Mark's accidental pressure make my breath shallow? I shifted my leg away, but the absence only made the memory of it sharper. More salad? I asked, voice steadier than I felt. He smiled, that easy smile. Our fingers nearly touched again over the wooden table. I kept my eyes on my plate, but my mind wouldn't stop. He's just being helpful. Supportive uncle. That's all this is, yet the spark refused to fade, humming under my skin like a low current I couldn't switch off. The silence between bites felt loaded now, every small sound amplified. The clink of forks, the soft scrape of chairs, the soft scrape of chairs, the way his breathing seemed to match the unsteady rhythm of mine. I told myself to focus on the food, on being the good wife preparing for her son's departure. But my thoughts kept circling back to that brush of hands earlier, to the warmth of him in the bedroom, to the way his presence made the ordinary evening feel charged, dangerous in its quiet way. And as I reached for the water glass, our eyes met again across the table. Just for a moment, long enough for me to wonder if he felt it too. That pull, that wrongness wrapped in something far too tempting, my heart wouldn't settle, not even when I told myself, firmly, to stop. As we cleared the dishes, our arms brushed, reaching for the same plate. His rough knuckles grazed my smooth skin, just for a second. And suddenly I was back on our wedding day, Mark standing as best man in that crisp suit, his eyes on me with a hunger I'd told myself was only my imagination. I yanked my hand away, heart slamming against my ribs. You're a wife and mother. I whispered inside, stop this right now. The plate clattered softly into the sink. I kept my eyes down, focusing on the soap bubbles, but the spot where we touched burned like a brand I couldn't rub away. The next morning Mark appeared in the doorway, voice low and easy. Need help sorting more of his clothes. I know how heavy this all feels. I nodded before I could think, and we stood side by side at the bed, folding the favorite hoodie that still carried the faint scent of my son's childhood shampoo mixed now with the sharper edge of packing stress and growing distance. His hand moved over mine to smooth a stubborn wrinkle, covering it completely. Warm. Steady. The radio played softly in the background, that old song from the early days of my marriage drifting through the room like smoke. The one we danced to under string lights, when everything felt possible. Now it twisted something deep in my chest, turning the simple motion of folding fabric into something I shouldn't feel. I forgot how to breathe for a moment. He didn't pull away, neither did I. The ache spread slow and heavy, desire and guilt crashing like waves I couldn't outrun. That afternoon the coffee pot hissed between us, another small care-giving ritual that felt anything but innocent. Mark stirred his cup, casual as ever, then mentioned how lonely my husband seemed lately at work, always staying late, always distant. Jealousy flared hot and sharp in my belly as I pictured it. Xiaobun pulling further away while Mark sat here, gaze attentive, voice gentle, body close enough that every reach for the sugar or the creamer brought us almost together. He's my brother-in-law, I told myself, fingers tightening around the warm mug. This obsession is wrong. So wrong, yet the growing heat low in my body betrayed every sensible thought, pulsing with every near miss where our arms nearly pressed, where his shoulder hovered inches from mine, where the air between us felt thick enough to drown in. I sipped too quickly, the bitterness sharp on my tongue. Mark's eyes flicked up again, darker now, and I wondered if he could see the war raging behind my careful smile. Part of me wanted to run, the other part, the part that ached with every accidental brush, leaned in just a fraction more, hungry for the gravity that kept pulling us closer despite every vow I'd made. My pulse wouldn't slow. The guilt only made the pull stronger, like a storm gathering right inside these familiar walls. And then his fingers lingered near mine on the counter, not quite touching, yet close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his skin, waiting for whatever came next. By evening the suitcases waited like silent accusations in the hall, too heavy for one person yet too intimate for anyone else to touch. I struggled with the largest one on the stairs, was catching on the edge of each step when Mark appeared behind me without a word. His chest brushed my back as he reached around to steady the weight, one strong arm sliding along mine for balance. Just a heartbeat too long, the solid warmth of him pressed there, unyielding, and the musky trace of his skin clean sweat mixed with something deeper, like sun-warmed earth after rain, flooded my senses so completely I nearly missed the next step. I caught my breath, pulse leaping against my throat. He didn't pull away immediately. His body anchored mine, close enough that every small shift sent a shiver racing down my spine. Memories I thought I'd buried years ago stirred uninvited, those secret teenage crushes where passion felt like falling, wild and reckless, before I chose the safer path of marriage and quiet stability. Now the obsession took root right here on these familiar stairs, twisting deeper with every shared breath. We reached the bottom together. His hand lingered at the small of my back, guiding me the last inch, then slipped away as if nothing had happened. But my skin remembered the pressure, the heat seeping through my thin blouse like a promise I had no right to hear. Night settled heavy outside the windows, and still my husband hadn't called. The house felt too quiet, too full of unsaid things. Mark moved to the kitchen without asking, pouring 2 glasses of red wine under the soft glow of the overhead light. "Just to take the edge off before tomorrow," he said, voice low and easy, sliding one toward me across the counter. I took it because refusing felt even more dangerous than accepting. The first sip burned warm down my throat. The second loosened something inside me I usually kept locked tight. Words spilled out before I could stop them. Small fractures in my marriage I hadn't admitted even to myself. The late nights at the office that stretched longer every month. The way conversations between my husband and me had grown polite, surface level, like strangers sharing a roof. Mark listened without interrupting, his eyes steady on mine. Then his hand rested on my knee under the table. "Comforting," he murmured, the warmth of his palm soaked through the denim of my jeans, spreading upward like slow fire. "This crosses every line," I screamed silently at myself. Think of your son packing for his future. Think of the vows you whispered in that church years ago. Yet I didn't move his hand. The ache bloomed hotter, low and insistent, while guilt clawed at my chest, making the forbidden touch feel electric, unbearable. The wineglass trembled slightly in my fingers. His thumb brushed once, barely there, tracing a small circle that sent my thoughts scattering. I wanted to stand up to break the spell, but my body refused, caught in the gravity pulling us closer despite every sensible warning ringing in my head. Later, in the dim hallway light, we checked the packed bags one final time. Mark stepped into close while adjusting a strap on the largest case. Our faces were suddenly inches apart, breaths mingling in the narrow space. I could feel the faint heat of his exhale against my lips, wine and something uniquely him. His fingers rose to my shoulder, tracing the thin strap of my tank top under the pretense of fixing it where it had slipped. Calloused fingertips grazed my bare skin, burning like a brand I knew would linger long after he let go. The almost kiss hovered there, suspended. His gaze dropped to my mouth, dark and hungry, and for one dizzying second I thought this was at the moment everything would shatter. My heart hammered so loudly I was sure he could hear it. Lips parted, breath caught. Then I turned my face away sharply, pulse racing wild in my veins, the texture of that single touch still searing my shoulder. I couldn't look at him. Couldn't speak. The air between us crackled with everything we weren't saying, everything we almost did. And in that frozen heartbeat I wondered how much longer I could pretend this was still innocent. I slipped away to the laundry room one last time, telling myself it was only to find that missing sock from the dryer. The air was thick with detergent and the faint trace of fabric's offener, but underneath it all lingered something else. Something that pulled me toward the basket where one of Mark's borrowed shirts lay forgotten. My fingers trembled as I lifted it, pressing the soft cotton to my face before I could stop myself. His scent flooded in, warm, masculine, like rain on sun-heated skin mixed with that cologne he wore every day. I breathed deeper, eyes closing, imagining his hands instead of my husband's, steady and sure, sliding along my waist in the dark. The hunger rose sharp and sudden, a storm I had no umbrella against. This was wrong, so terribly wrong, yet my body leaned into the fabric as if it could answer every ache I'd buried for years. And then the door creaked open behind me. Footsteps, slow and deliberate. I didn't need to turn to know it was him. The air shifted, charged with the same gravity that had been building between us all evening. Mark's presence filled the small space, his breathing uneven now, matching the wild rhythm of my own. "Couldn't stay away there?" he murmured, voice rough like gravel underfoot. I clutched the shirt tighter, heart slamming against my ribs, every sensible thought screaming to drop it and run. But my feet stayed rooted. He stepped closer, the heat of him radiating through the thin air until I could almost feel his chest brush my back. His hand hovered near my elbow, not quite touching, yet the promise of its electricity skittering across my skin. I forgot how to breathe. This close, the forbidden pull felt like drowning in warm water, sweet, terrifying. He reached for me then, arms encircling my waist with a gentleness that shattered something inside. I turned in his hold, faces inches apart, eyes locked in a silent confession neither of us could voice. His gaze dropped to my lips, dark with the same hunger I'd seen flickering all night. My pulse roared in my ears. We shouldn't. We couldn't, yet my chin tilted up, just a fraction, the almost moment stretching taut like a wire about to snap. His breath ghosted warm against my mouth, wine and longing intertwined. Lips parted. And then they met soft at first, then deeper, a charged collision that tasted of every unsaid word, every stolen glance. Heat bloomed everywhere our bodies pressed, his hands firm on my waist pulling me nearer, the world narrowing to this single, devastating point of surrender. Guilt clawed at me even as I melted into it, mind fracturing between stop and don't ever stop. This was the line, and we had crossed it. A click echoed from the front door sharp, unmistakable. My husband's voice called out casually from the hallway, keys jingling. "Hey, I'm home early, traffic wasn't bad for once." "How's the packing going?" We sprang apart like guilty thieves. hearts hammering in frantic unison. My cheeks burned, lips still tingling with the ghost of his. Mark's eyes widened, flushed face mirroring my own panic in the dim light. No words passed between us, only a heavy, loaded silence thick with what we'd almost let happen. What we had let happen for one breathless second. I smoothed my hands down my sides, trying to steady the tremble while footsteps approached. My husband stepped into view, smiling tiredly, oblivious to the storm still raging in the small room. "Smells like you'd have been busy. Need help with the last bag?" The moment shattered, leaving only the echo of that kiss hanging between Mark and me like smoke after a fire. We murmured something polite, voices to even too careful. My husband chatted on about his day, unpacking a quick snack from his briefcase, while I busied myself folding the shirt with shaking fingers, hiding the way my skin still remembered Mark's touch. No one spoke of it. No one had to. The secret desire sat exposed in our flushed faces, in the guilty way our eyes refused to meet again. Later that night, the house settled into its usual quiet rhythm. I lay beside my sleeping husband, the sheet school against my overheated skin, his steady breathing a reminder of the life we'd built. Yet my hands still carried the faint, clean scent of the packed clothes, now forever mixed in memory with Mark's cologne and the haunting press of that interrupted kiss. The moral wreckage pressed down on my chest, heavy as the darkness around us. Was it just a fleeting weakness born of too many lonely evenings, or the start of something deeper I could no longer push away? The what-if lingered, curling through my thoughts like tendrils of smoke. His arms, his mouth, the way everything had almost unraveled in that laundry room. I turned onto my side, staring at the faint outline of my husband's shoulder, the ache settling low and persistent, forever changing the quiet domestic dark of our marriage bed. And in the stillness, I wondered if I'd ever truly sleep soundly again.